Welcome to Project Quiver, a father-daughter journey across the globe to capture the artistry and spirit of the world's finest traditional bow carvers. I'm Todd, the father. Ella is my daughter. Together we're on a mission to create a stunning coffee table book that profiles more than a dozen master bowyers and their unparalleled skill. For each chapter, we travel to the bowyer's workshop, carve a bow under his guidance, photograph his woodcraft in detail, and share his story here on the Salish Wolf podcast. The book is called Quiver, The Art of Life Through Bowcraft. And this journey, our living story, is Project Quiver.
How are you, man?
Hey, pretty good. Yeah, long time no see.
It's been a while. I don't even remember how long it's been.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I always want to say like 4 years, but reality, it's probably like 6.
Yeah, something like that. It's
So,
been a while.
Yeah.
You're looking good.
Yeah, keeping busy, having fun. You know,
Good.
Kids are getting big, and we've been, things have settled out a bit. You know, we've been doing the whole community stuff for a few years, and finally our house is all done, and
Nice.
a little more time and space in our world to, enjoy. Kids are getting old.
How old are the kids now?
Feather is turning 14 on Saturday,
Okay.
and Ewan just turned 11.
All right. Yeah, I was trying to remember how old they might be. My son is 12 and my daughter's 15. So
Okay, so you got 1 year ahead of us.
yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
Such cool names for a bowyer's kids.
Feather and Ewan. And what are yours?
Yeah.
Bria or Brea?
That's my wife.
Okay.
My daughter's Ella and my son is Ollie.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point I'm curious to pick your brain, Costa Rica a little bit, but happy
Well,
to.
we're gonna have a
We
we're
got
gonna have a
some time.
handful of days to do that. Yeah.
That's true. Cool.
Yeah. I'll be.
Sound-wise, can you hear me okay? You're just on speaker.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
It's not studio quality, but I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like you are in the workshop where I've been before. Is that still your place?
Yeah, we're still Lang Bay Road.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. No, I don't feel like too much has changed around here.
So tell me a bit about how your property has changed, because when I last saw you, you guys were pretty new there and you were creating kind of an eco-conscious community. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. So we bought the place, I guess, January of 2019, so 6.5 years ago now.
Okay.
And when we bought it, it was an old sort of bed and breakfast, sort of natural retreat, I would say. So we have been pretty busy around there. We've cleared a bit of land. At this point, I think we're up to 6 new houses have been built there.
Wow.
And so far, everything has been sort of natural built, like a lot of clay, a lot of, cob, variation on cob, earth bag, chip slip. Because we have sort of no enforced building code where we are in the regional district. We've got that flexibility. So been building sort of smaller housing. We've been putting in, water systems and gray water systems and orchards. And it's been busy.
That is so cool. So how big's the land again?
We got 42 acres.
Wow. Okay, that's way bigger than I thought.
42 acres, a lot of forest. We
Yeah.
got our whole eastern boundary is the river. And it's a complicated property because it's pretty benchy, sort of big natural terraces. But we've also got a ton of water coming through there. We've got 3 ponds, springs, river, creek. So we've got setbacks off of all of those water bodies. So even though it's big, it's relatively limited on, where we can do what we want to do. But we still have a lot of wild space with it too.
Yeah, it's so beautiful too with the river and all those waterways. That's and all the trees. Yeah. So for the homes that you built, do you have families living in them? How many families are it? How many families now are part of the community?
I think we have 8 full-time families there now, and another 1 that's sort of in exploration. So I think I want to say we have about 20 3 people on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
sizable.
I'd have to do a head count to,
Yeah.
figure out exactly. But yeah, good balance. Our youngest is 5 now. He was born there. And I think our oldest is turning 80. So everything in between.
And is it everything you had envisioned and more, or is
It's
it?
been complicated. Like this year, we are doing a potluck with our sort of sister community, because when we started it, there was 6 families, and not last minute, but when it came time to buy property, we split into 2 groups. So 3 families bought the sort of out of town acreage that we're on, and 3 families bought a farm in town. So this year in August will be a 10-year anniversary to the start of the meetings. So it's been a lot, So now that we've put a lot into it. Like Jenna and I have been, relatively central in the whole, building the system. So now that things are sort of built out a little bit, feeling more stable, that was always the baseline. It's like, we got to get to where things are stable, where it's the amount of work required individually is not, overwhelming. So feels like we're at that point now. So this year our families, we've taken a little bit of a break. We did a big trip in the winter. We went down to South America for 5 months.
Right. Yeah. I want to hear about that.
Yeah. Really getting into our surfing as a family. So it's great. It's been a lot for us in the family for sure. So we're taking a little, not a break, but we've transitioned, we call a nourishment phase. So for years we were building and clearing and infrastructure and systems, and now we're just taking a break, really trying to connect as a community, refocus why we're here, and try and take the time to, I want to say, enjoy it.
Yeah. Are you expanding still, or are other families? Like, I know you said you had an application for one considering. Is there a desire to go beyond that?
Yeah. So the way it's set up now is we cleared an area and we put in 8 building sites. And there's another probably 2 or 3 building sites on the lower section. So I would say we could easily handle 8 to 10 before we had to look at, further development, more clearing. So I think for now we're just sort of, not clearing any more land at the moment. Slowly trying to build up to those, getting the sites we do have occupied. But at this moment, for the last year, we've taken a pause on membership, just because things are stable. Financially, it's quite affordable. So we're all just taking a little breather and a break. There was the risk of burnout. So we are actively trying to avoid, overdoing it and burning out and losing members. So
Yeah,
we're taking a break for now. There's a family coming, partly because we all know them, and we're excited to have them there. But new people take a lot of work, integrating them into the place, the systems. So at this moment, we're kind of on pause to just chill out, relax, no stress, take care of ourselves as community members.
Mm-hmm.
But there is definitely room for further expansion down the line.
Yeah. And what is like the general ethos of the community? Are you guys completely off the grid, sustainable agriculture? What is the vibe?
No, I would say I often describe us a bit of a Goldilocks. We're not to this, we're not to that. We are grid tied. We all have power. We're working on our food systems, but it's not the greatest farmland. It's pretty forested, got a lot of rock. So I would say direction, not perfection, trying to take it easy on ourselves, moving towards, a lot of those pieces, food sustainability. And I would say our focus, or what ties us together, is a love of the land. It's a beautiful spot, especially in the summer. This time of year, we have hands down the most beautiful swimming holes in Powell River. So that, is definitely a piece. So love of the land, affordability, sort of support, helping each other out. But we're not a religious community. We're not, strictly a vegan community or that sort of thing. it's a bit of, love of the land and affordability and trying to, I don't know, slow down, enjoy life, come together, celebrate, but no sort of strong tying piece, I would say.
Yeah. Is most of the most of the structures, are they natural build? You
Yeah.
mentioned a lot of them are.
Yeah. So far, everything new has been natural built. So Jenna
And is that the community coming together to do that?
There's some of that. Yeah. At this point, when you join as a member, you're sort of assigned a building lot. In reality, you can build pretty much whatever you want on it. But there's definitely an emphasis on natural material, smaller dwellings. We have a common house. You've seen it. We've got that big house there. So
Yeah.
we have guest bedrooms, we have communal laundry, we have, big kitchen, gathering space. So some of having, guest bedrooms in the common house is you can build a smaller house because maybe you don't need a guest bedroom. So, but I think the natural build, some of it's been affordability. Cost of building these days has gone absolutely crazy. So natural builds, although there's more labor involved, material-wise, they're still pretty affordable. We've done a lot of volunteer labor through the Workaway program. And there's community members, helping each other on site for sure. When I came over here, a couple people from the community were helping one guy shingle the side of his house. So it goes on, but it's not a prescribed necessity, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have, I guess, obviously built your own house, you and Jenna and the kids?
Yeah, we built our own. We got interested in a style of building called earth bag, so also known as hyper adobe. So using, they call it Rochelle netting, like an open weave polyethylene, polypropylene bag, kind of like an onion sack, but comes in a long tube. So we would fill those tubes with clay from on site, local sand, and pumice, so the puffed volcanic rock. So there's a mine up in Pemberton. So our house has a high ratio of pumice. So we built an earth bag, and then it's all cobbed over, natural plasters. So we built a small one first, maybe about 600 square feet, single story, with a sort of a post and beam roof structure. So we built that one during COVID and finished it up, and we sold it to a community member. And that we learned a lot, and it gave us the confidence to build our family house, which is now 2-story load-bearing earth bag.
That is awesome. I can't wait to see it.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I love the natural building, so it's well done. Where are you from? Is Powell River home?
No. Originally just across the pond. So I was raised in Comox, Courtenay.
Okay.
Comox Valley. Grew up there. But both my parents came from Eastern Canada. So my dad's from New Brunswick, moved out to Vancouver in the 70s. And my mom's from Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I promise we will talk about bows, but I want to hear about South America.
Yeah. So we were looking for, we've been working on our Spanish as a family. We want to all learn better Spanish. We've been trying to time it. We've wanted to do a big trip for a number of years. And we were trying to find that sort of sweet age where Feather wasn't too old, but Ewan was old enough. We left. Feather would have been, I guess, 13. Ewan would have been 10. And we've been to Mexico a few times in the past, and we wanted to go a little further afield. And affordability was a big piece because we wanted to go for a long trip, and we homeschool. So we had a lot of flexibility to just roll, South America into the kids' education. So we settled on Peru. A couple reasons. One, it's known as the home of the left-hand point breaks. Everything is peeling left, up and down the coast, which appeals to 3 of the 4 family members, Jenna and I
Some
included.
goofy footage.
Yeah. There's the wave Chicama, which is pretty famous that we watch on surf cams and wanted to see in person. So we And then Peru had such a variety of ecosystem, right from some of the driest deserts on Earth to the wettest Amazon jungle to like the high Andes mountains, Lake Titicaca, a lot of volcanic activity. There was just so much to see and do within that country. And then we settled on a town sort of north central Peru called Huanchaco, which is a suburb of the town city Trujillo. And we were looking for a place where we could surf the morning, super consistent, not big, but consistent, and Spanish classes sort of during midday. So we settled there, little town called Huanchaco, got enrolled in Spanish classes, bought some surfboards. We stayed there for a month at the start. Super consistent waves, like unbelievable. You can surf every day, all year. Super friendly, super affordable. Yeah, so we surfed there for a month, and then we went up the coast and visited a bunch of other waves for a couple weeks. And then we went down to Chile and visited. We did a family reunion for Christmas. So Jenna's side of the family came down, did some surfing, did some sort of inland volcano hiking stuff. And then we traveled for 2 months all through up to Lake Titicaca, the Atacama Desert, up into the Andes, Sacred Valley, Cusco, Ollantaytambo, a lot of that old Inca stonework, Machu Picchu. And then we went into the jungle and we did a 8-day canoe camping trip with us and a boat driver and a guide and a cook, and went pretty deep up the waterways into the Amazon. And then we went back to the coast and we surfed for another 6 weeks. And we surfed Huanchaco a lot. But we really loved that Chicama area. It's pretty desert. Like it's not the most beautiful sort of visual. Like it's some of the desert, like there's nothing alive. It is just windswept, barren. But the wave, it just wraps around this point and then peels. And until you've seen it, either in video or in person, it's hard to explain. Like really long periods, like 18, 19-second periods, and crazy long rides. Like we got a video of Feather, a drone shot, and she's ripping backside. And you miss the start of the wave. So she's on it for a little while first, but the video is over 1.5 minutes of her, of her ripping backside. So crazy long rides. It's got quite a bit of current, so it can be a bit tricky to paddle. You got to hike out to the point and then punch out. But there's also a couple guys there. We became buddies with one of the boat drivers. So they run little Zodiacs and you hire them for 3 hours and they'll run you out to the point, drop you off, and then sort of boat along beside you as you're surfing in, pick you up and run you back out. So we got hooked on some boat trips in Chicama and surfed our faces off there.
Dude, that sounds amazing. All of that. Yeah, no, it was good. And we skipped winter. We left at the end of October and we came home at the end of March. So we're in the return home phase now where we're sort of, got the memories, but kind of jonesing for what's next. Yeah. So when you traveled around, did you have a vehicle? At times we did everything, we kept it super light. We only had carry-on bags. And we had wetsuits in our bags with us. So we had packing super minimal. Most of the area we were in, it's basically 22 degrees, sun and cloud all year. Sort of, again, Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. We probably had 3 days of rain in 5 months. So super, super dry. There's an air current that sort of swings around Antarctica. All the moisture freezes out and then it comes slamming into Peru. So the air itself has very little moisture in it. So it is very rare. Like a lot of the shopping malls are sort of open air. Like there's just no roofs on anything. So when they do get rain, can be catastrophic, but it is so rare. Yeah. But a lot of busing, a lot of taxis. With your surfboards? No, we rented at first. There's decent board rental most places. So we rented boards.
And then the last trip, when we came back to the coast for 6 weeks, we bought boards. There was a local shaper there who, well, 3 of us got boards made. And then we brought the boards home with us.
What's a locally made shape board cost from there?
It was about 400 Canadian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was great because, his shop was like right on the beach, and he'd let you try everything too. He'd be like, "Oh, I built this one. Take it out. What do you think? Try this." So it's not a lot of times you can demo the board, like brand new boards. But no, he's great. He said, if you buy the board for basically about 425 Canadian, he'd buy it back from you for half price at the end of the trip if you wanted. But by that point, we all got pretty attached, and souvenirs, really. Some people bring home mugs, and some people bring home surfboards.
Well, you can keep using them.
Yep.
Wetsuits required?
Yeah, 3 2s. Yeah,
okay.
3 2s. Some places we did bring booties just because there's decent. Some places got rock. 3 2s. There was a couple times in sort of their winter where I could have done a 4-3.
Wow.
But but with that, it's that same sort of Antarctic current, decently cold water. But with that cold water comes just a plethora of sea life. So much fish, so much seafood. Yeah. And it also, I think, is probably what keeps the surf, less crowded, because it's not super tropical. It's more arid desert, and the water's a little chilly. And I think a lot of surf travel is, chasing tropical warm water. So, there was times it got busy, but there was a lot of times where it was not busy at all.
That's amazing. Good for you.
Yeah.
Where did the family learn to surf?
We've been going to, I've surfed since I was little, but we've played around in Tofino a bunch. So that's probably where the kids started when they were little. We had them like they were the little 2 and 3 year olds in the little mini wetsuits and boogie boards. And so they've been in the water since they were real small. Tofino is where they started picking it up. But this trip, everyone surfing just leveled up big time. We did a couple trips to Mexico. They were a bit smaller, but that's sort of where Jenna started getting into it. But this trip, everyone. Yeah.
Are you guys on shortboards or longboards?
Anything in between. We have Jenna, I have longboards, but we're riding more fun boards. I'm on a bit of a 6-8 egg thing. Jenna's on a sort of a 7-2, 7-3 fun board. And the kids are into their shortboards. Feathers on a little 5-5. Ewan likes shortboards. They want something they can duck dive because they're small, and if the waves are big for us, they're huge for them. So yeah.
And how'd the Spanish go?
Pretty good. The kids, I would say, picked it up quicker than us.
That's expected, I think.
Yeah, they got those malleable little brains that just soak it up. In some ways, I think we were hoping to pick up a little bit more. The hard part is traveling as a family. It's like we still talk English together, as if you're there, entirely on your own. But near the end of the trip, both in Huanchaco, we met a good friend there who we keep in touch with, Carlos. And so that's been good. And then the kids met 3 little friends in Chicama who they were hanging out with and playing with and are still video chatting all the time. And they don't speak any English, so that's super good for them. But we're all sort of at that point where we've got a bit better Spanish, we've got a bit better at surfing, and we're sort of thinking, man, if we went again, like, what would the next level up, look like on both of those?
That's so amazing. And the homeschooling, so that's something that obviously affords you guys a lot of flexibility. Have you always homeschooled?
We've homeschooled right from the get-go. Yeah.
Both
of them. We have an older son who's now 24. And he went through public school, and public school, works for some, doesn't work for others. It didn't work for him. So there was some struggles that came along with that. So with these guys, because our business has been entirely flexible as well, the homeschooling, really fit for us. I wouldn't say we were opposed to public school. It's looking like perhaps both of them are going to school this year.
Oh, really?
Feather really wants to do high school. So where we live, high school starts in grade 8. So we skipped grade 8 on our trip. So she would be into grade 9 this year. Um, yeah, and she's excited for the drama and the foods and the pieces that come with it.
Yeah.
We just really wanted our kids to get their feet under them, figure out a little bit who they are, what's important to us and our family, what our values look like, so that when they do enter that system, that I want to say there's just a bit more self-confidence that comes with that. And they both have that. They're both super solid, good communicators, and I think they'll be okay. But
Yeah.
it feels easier now to put them into that system than when they're really little.
Right. Now, were you guys doing kind of the unschooling thing, or did you have some curriculum that you were trying to keep them pace with?
So where we live in the Powell River region, there is a department of the public school called the PI program, Partners in Education. So it's run through our school district. They were assigned a teacher and schoolwork with that. So they've been, doing the BC curriculum with that. And then, through the year, they would have activities and interaction days with various events in the community. And so, no, we were doing, I would say, the homeschool, but sort of supported through the public school system.
Yeah.
But our teachers were really, really great. Basically, I would say our teachers trusted us as parents, and, education is a priority. So a lot of times the teacher would come out and the kids would sort of sit down and show them, run through pictures or slideshows of what we've been doing and working on. And, the teachers were really good at finding ways to, make that life skills fit into the boxes that they needed.
Nice. So it sounds like a good system. You're lucky to have that.
Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, when the kids were younger, they had more friends who were homeschooling. And then over time, more and more of their friends started going into the public school. Whereas at the point now, there's a couple friends they have at homeschool, but yeah, most of their friend network is in school now. So it's also gotten to the point, some of Feather's programs, the grade 9, like you get to a point where it's nice to have a math teacher who really understands it and can explain it in a way that, works in English. And so when they're really little, it's easy. As parents, it's all, super, super basic. But I also appreciate the value of having, the right teacher at the right time who can, explain the material better. Because we are many things, but we are not school teachers.
Yeah, I can understand that. So, how's the rest of things been going? Let's talk about bows.
Yeah. So our bow front, leading up to our trip, we worked really hard for a long time, so that when we did go, we had a good collection of bows for sale up on the site, which was great. And, sales were pretty steady throughout our trip, and we had someone back at our shop who could do our shipping for us. So it was nice to be able to, keep that rolling while we were away. Although we couldn't physically do the work, we could still, sell our product. Yeah. So that was good.
How many did you have pre-made for sale?
I think we had, I want to say 22, I believe.
Nice.
And I think we sold 18 of them while we were away.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that helps, but yeah, business-wise, we started when Feather was born. So in 2010, I believe is when we started our business. So we're 2011 maybe we started. I think we're going on 14 years now. We've been building bows full time. Yeah.
Full time, the whole time. Good for you.
Both of us, Jenna and I. So
is she carving bows now, or is she helping with?
Jenna does. I mean, we have very complementary skill sets. So Jenna still does all the finishing. So we have a system where, I knock the tree down, split it, dry it, build the bow, all the horn, tiller stuff, get it sort of final sanded. And then Jenna's shop, I don't know when you were here, but Jenna's shop is up above my shop here.
Upstairs.
Yeah. And she still does, final sanding, signatures, burnings, all the strings, handles, bow socks, packaging, shipping, and all the admin, all the, email, shipping, counting.
Amazing.
All of that stuff. So no, it's a good team because, yeah, the nice thing for me is, I've built enough bows that I can build a real nice shooting bow. But she finishes the bows way beyond what I could do, which is neat because it's, producing a product that is, I want to say, greater than one person. So for me, it's nice to see them finished up because it's not my forte.
Yeah. Well, it's such a cool little collaboration you guys have going on, and it's been working well for a long time. So you're doing something right.
Yeah, no, it's been good. Our business has always been sort of split into three components. We've been building bows, a lot of bows. I think we're well over 1,000 bows have built now.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good, sense of what we can do and what we can get away with. For a long time, we were, doing stock bows, and then for a long time, we got right into most of what we were building was custom bows. And then a couple years ago, I tried to slow down our custom a little bit. Custom's great, but sometimes you run into I want to say the square peg, round hole situation.
Yeah.
You're trying to produce a certain weight and a certain length, and the piece of wood is asking for something different. And the nice thing about being a bowyer is just really trying to follow and listen to the wood as best you can.
Yeah.
So then I sort of started thinking, if I had enough bows on the site in the right, a good range of weights and lengths, maybe there's not a need for custom bows, so then we paused our custom for a bit, and started just building a lot more stock bows, which in some ways was really great. Just that freedom to pick up a piece of wood and just without attachment to what it ends up as, what is the best use of this wood? So, we've done that for the last couple of years. We'll still take custom orders here and there, especially for, good returning customers, and we'll open up our customs, but a balance, So 1/3 of our business has been building lots of bows. At first, we were building more flat bows than we were long bows, more hunting style, recurved, wider, stiff handle sort of stuff. And then our orders just started going heavy and heavy English longbow. So now we're still building mostly English longbow, building a lot more war bows than I've ever built. So that 90 to 140 range. I can't shoot them personally, but get them on the tiller stick and stretch them out. And and now getting back a little bit more into flat bows, been doing some more of that. Also been having fun with laminates. I've been playing around a lot with my bamboo back to you laminates. So making a couple different styles of that: long bows, flat bows, recurves, or reflex deflex. Good use for some of the bigger trees that aren't necessarily self-bow quality, but there's still lots of good sound lumber in there. So doing that and still teaching lots of workshops. That's been right from the get-go. The workshops have always been a big part of our business here.
How many are you doing a year on average?
Well, we're traveling less over time. I used to travel more. I used to do a 3-day sort of crash course bow making workshop. And now this year, all of our courses are sort of what we call our week-long bow immersion. So people come from all over. First time this year, I had someone from Australia come up.
Wow.
And we got a full week in my shop to build, whatever we can get up to. So our focus has always been building a nice self bow, either a flat bow or long bow, out of a nice use stave. I like to do a laminate bow build on the side, build some arrows, build a dozen arrows to match the bow, get some shooting time in, and head up into the bush. We got some real nice sort of forests around here with good yew wood. So it's nice to head up into the bush and see the trees in their natural state, and just develop that eye, for what's a bowyer looking for in a tree and in a stave. So this year, I think we have 5 or 6 of those.
That's amazing. What does one of those cost?
I believe they're 1,200 Canadian.
That's a hell of a deal.
They might be 1,400, but I would have to double check.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, to get a custom bow that you've taught them to make. I mean, I've obviously done a few with you, and been so happy with the product. Shot them for years. Actually,
Yeah.
one of the bows I still teach with is the very first bow that I ever bought, which was a 40-pound bow from you, Bailey's.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still one of my go-tos for teaching. And then I think my first workshop with you, I built a bow for my wife, which
Oh, yeah.
is one of the bows I use a lot for teaching also, because it's a bit lighter weight.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I always enjoy hearing, where the bows end up, because we make them and people take them away, or we send them out, and often, you just don't hear what the life of that bow looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you recall, I think the second retreat that I brought men to you, we built a longbow for my son, who was probably at the time like, I don't know, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And we named that one Kathet, which I had asked you. I'm like, everyone who was there at the retreat helped to make this bow. And I was like, I want to name it something that kind of means people working together.
Yeah.
And then you said, well, how about Kathet? It's actually the First Nations name for Powell River, the indigenous name.
Yeah.
So that was perfect.
Not specifically the town of Powell River.
Okay.
But the regional district.
The region.
Yeah. People working together. Great name.
Yeah. Yeah. So we still have Kathet too. So
that's cool.
Your bows are incredible. They're so beautiful. Every single one of them is an amazing work of art. And as I travel around meeting with other bowyers and all the research I've done for this book, I'm still blown away by the bows that you make. They're absolutely stunning. Recently, you started making, or you said experimenting with a new arrow pass inlay, which looks incredible. What is that?
Yeah, so a lot of my learning, comes from working with people. So I had a fellow come up and do a workshop. I believe he was from Texas, and he was into knife making as well. And he was telling me about a product called a Mosaic knife handle pin. So I started looking into it. So you buy them from a tool supply, like a knife supply store. And it's a pin, sort of a rod that you can get in different diameters and different lengths. And it turns out they make them in all sorts of different patterns. So
wow.
They'll have different material in it. They'll have sometimes brass, sometimes stainless, some sort of different epoxy resins, reds and blacks. But you can get all sorts of different, patterns to it. So I really like the Celtic, sort of the knotwork mosaic stuff. So I started buying these pins, and I think I'm getting them in, I forget if it's 7 or 8 mil. I get them in. They come a couple inches long. And then I drill out the bow with a nice sharp brad point bit to get a real nice clean edged hole. Cut that pin down with a hacksaw so it's a little bit proud. Set it in with glue, tap it in, let it harden up, and then file it down flush. But beautiful patterns, and super durable. For years I was doing a lot of stone inlay, so I'd use various stone powders mixed with different resins, which was decent. A lot of them turned out good. Every once in a while I'd get chipping and cracking and air bubbles and whatnot. So I've switched more into these mosaic pins, and also doing a bit more horn plug. So to use a dowel cutter on a drill press, and drill out an actual horn, either whatever color horn generally matches the tips, and set that in. Because for arrow pass, a lot of the longbows are shot without a handle. So it's nice to have some reference to, on this 6-foot bow, where should the arrow go? So, and something durable, because even though you do your best to make the arrows as smooth and frictionless as possible, every time an arrow passes the bow, there's a little kick, little friction there. Yeah. So if you can put a little piece of hard material in that exact right spot, you're just not asking the wood to do that work.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, it's like one of the things that I'm most excited about putting into the new bow that I carved with you. Yeah. After I saw those photos, I was like, that's what I want. I want a bow with that. Cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, if you look them up, if you have a chance, it's called a Mosaic knife. What do they call it? Mosaic pin.
Yeah.
Knife handle pin. Because there's all sorts of different patterns there. I've actually been thinking, I saw one recently. It's that Yggdrasil, that the tree of life which I thought would make a cool little inlay pin there too. So
Yeah.
take a look if there's any specific pattern.
I didn't realize there were knife supply places for making knives, but
yeah,
sure, I guess there is for everything.
Yeah, I mean, they sell steel, these knife pins, scales, they call them, which are like the handle blanks. Yeah.
When Ella and I were just, after we finished up in Salt Lake City, carving at Heartwood Bows, we went to Park City because we have some friends there. And we were just walking downtown Park City, and there's a knife store there that just blew me away. I couldn't believe, like, for one thing, the cost of everything was like, oh my God, like $1,000 you're lucky to get even a little paring knife with. But some of these knives were like $5,000-$6,000, and everything was so gorgeous. But the store was packed with people. The walls were lined with thousands and thousands of knives. And I was just like, wouldn't this be a cool thing for like traditional primitive bows? Like to have a place like this where a bunch of artisans had their bows. Because I mean, that was the thing about these knives. They were just so stunning to look at. I'm sure they're good to use too, but yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, I guess knife supply stores. As you were talking, you mentioned, I don't know, but the naming came to my mind. You guys name every bow that you've ever made, right?
Yeah, right from the get-go. Even my first bow way before we were doing it as a business, there was an old website, Primitive Archer, that when I started was a big resource back in the day. A forum message board where people were posting, what they were building, and must have been I saw someone naming a bow, and for some reason it just hit me and stuck, because especially with the self bows, because it's coming straight out of a tree. Every tree is different. Every stave is different. They're so unique. It's like they deserve to name them by a model would just be, I don't know, it wouldn't capture sort of who they are. So at first I was into a lot of the names that sort of had a reference to, the wood character. Like I remember like Lumpy and sort of, that sort of stuff.
Sounds like the dwarves, Lumpy and Naughty and Whippy.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And then, over time, Jenna definitely took over the naming front. She's a bit of a mythology, history sort of buff. So everything gets named. The names come from all over the place. Sometimes we're traveling, mountain ranges, rivers. But most of our names come from history, mythology, trying to focus, primarily more where the bows were coming from. British Isles. Try not to use, trying to not use like local First Nations names necessarily for our bows. But a lot of history, mythology. And we got a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet Jenna's got, and there are hundreds of names on there.
Wow. Have you recycled any of them, or are they all unique?
We have not recycled any of them. Nope.
Wow. Okay.
Nope. And it's, when you're here, I'll read you off our list, because we also collect all the names of the finished bows as well. And because we've built so many bows now, there's probably 200 bows that have been named with like the letter A, and 100 with the letter B. When customers order their own custom bow, they can name it whatever they want. They can name it a name that's been used. That's totally fine. It's their bow. But when we are producing our own bows, no, once the name is used, it goes to the other side of the spreadsheet, and that's it.
Yeah. It was a technique I picked up from you guys, and all the original bows that I made, I gave names to. And what I found is really helpful for me is when I'm teaching archery in Costa Rica, and often my son is helping me, is that we can actually have a dialogue, like, what bow do you think is going to be best for this person? Or someone can be shooting. I can be like, hey, Ollie, can you go get Talon and bring it over here? And so we have a way of knowing what bow, and that really helps.
Yeah.
Now that we're doing this journey with this book, I'm doing only what the bowyers do traditionally with their own bows. So far, the three that I've made have been unnamed, and that's the way they'll remain. But
well, I'm sure we'll fix that.
And then Jenna, like I always remember how beautiful her penmanship is. Does she do wood burning, or is she using like archival ink and pen?
No, it's all wood burned.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, there's a company, a lot of people try and do the wood burning with those, like almost like a soldering iron
Yep,
pen.
that was
Uh,
me.
yeah, no, it's not the ticket. No.
I looked
So
like I had arthritis and I'd come out
yeah,
with no fingerprints on my index finger because I'd kept getting burnt.
yeah. No, every once in a while, will request, "Oh, I really want the bow, signed by Jamie," and I'll be like, "Oh, are you sure? Like, be forewarned. Like, it is a different product altogether." Um, but yeah, Jenna's got the gift of the script. She has a very steady hand. There's a different wood burner we use called the
Yeah.
razor tip. So
Okay.
it's got like a separate power supply to a corded. The burning pen itself is not much bigger than a Sharpie, so you can
Okay.
hold it like a normal pen. And with that, you can really, yeah, super fine. The pens come with a tiny little welded stainless ball on the end of them.
Mm.
So you've got a certain life where they sort of do melt themselves out. So I think Jenna's probably got 5 or 6 pens that she'll go through. And then when they sort of get burnt out, you just ship them back to the company and they weld a new ball on and send them back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it is the tool for that. Depending on the complexity, generally with the names, she'll freehand all of the names and the weights and signatures and whatnot. I believe she pencils it on first. But we also do a decent amount of, burnings, whether it's, people have symbols or emblems that they want on the bows, sometimes a bit of knot work. War bows, we burn all the arrow passes. So with that, sometimes I know she will print it out on just standard paper and then transfer it to the bow with like a carbon transfer paper. Yeah.
So people will send you their image and then she can basically,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way, kind of freehand that onto the bow using that carbon
Yeah.
transfer.
Yeah. Yeah. We get quite a lot of that.
Yeah.
People have, family crests or, all sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just ordered a stamp because when I was at Swiftwood Bows with Waylon Olive, he has this stamp that he does Swiftwood on his Swiftwood logo. And so I learned about that. And it's just a stamp you can get off of Amazon and then use archival ink. And
Oh, interesting.
so I just ordered that with my logo, and then that goes on before any of the finishings, is my
Okay.
understanding.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Years
And then
ago, go ahead.
he just uses archival ink and is for writing anything on it too. So in a pen with archival ink says it works great. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, we had a little branding iron made with our logo on it.
Yeah.
But it was a bit intimidating because here you've got this beautifully finished sanded bow and you're trying to like heat up this branding iron with a torch, and is it hot enough? Is it too hot? Like, and then you touch it and all of a sudden it either looks great or it doesn't. But if it doesn't,
Right.
it's hard to touch up. And
Yeah.
so we let go of that one.
Speaking of the brand, can you tell us the genesis of the Ravenbeak brand? You got a cool story with that.
Yeah. So this was years before we ever, as a business, but when Jen and I met, do you want the elevator version or the slightly longer version?
You got as much time as you want.
Okay. So when we met, we were both interested in plant identification. So we live in Pacific Northwest, west coast of Canada. And yeah, there's some really good tree identification books. So we were interested in, local trees, fauna. And we were out one day in north of Campbell River, and we found a tree that neither of us knew. And it was this scraggly little conifer with almost an orange looking needle to it. So we were stumped. We brought it home, little piece of it, pulled out our plant book, the Pojar McKinnon, and looked it up. And that was the first time we, positively identified the Pacific yew. It looks a lot like a hemlock, kind of a scraggly, it's got a green needle. And, the yew often looks, I want to say half dead. They're sort of, people say they've got 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the other world. Often covered in moss. They grow super slow. So with the yew, you can positively identify it because the tip of the needle will come to a very distinct point versus the hemlock, which will have a rounded tip. So It was the first time we identified the yew. So probably, I don't know, fast forward a couple weeks, couple months, doesn't matter. We were exploring an area up above Cumberland on Vancouver Island, an area known as Devil's Ladder. And we were up in that area, and there was this big tree that came out of the hillside, but it came out and it almost swooped down and then started swooping up and branched out into these sort of big, wide branches. And there was something magical about it because we walked past it and we sort of both looked at each other, looked back at the tree, and then we went back to it. And it turned out to be a huge yew tree, this grandmother yew that was growing out of this hillside. And so the way it was sort of growing out of the hillside, you could walk up the trunk of the tree, and then it had these sort of big, long branches that came out. So you could climb up into this tree pretty easy. And we ended up sort of sitting down in there, hanging out. And it was sort of so cradling, you could actually lay down in the tree and it would sort of hold you among all these branches. So I spent some time, and then we came out of the tree and we went down below it. So we sort of scrambled down the hillside, tucked under, and it was this really mossy, almost like an old boulder field. And right under the tree was a perfectly preserved top and bottom raven's beak. So the bird had obviously died in the tree, fallen to the ground, and the body seemed to have rot away, but the beak was still there. So yeah, we sort of made our offerings and asked to take this beak with us and left a little gift. And it came with us. So from that point, the raven beak and the yew tree sort of became, intricately connected. And then the story actually continued years later. So years later, we're up and running. We just had our business going, and then, so my father passed away unexpectedly of a heart condition. And for whatever reason, I had a feeling that tree had blown over, fallen over. So I went out there. I drove out. I hiked up the slope, and I walked up to this tree, and it had ripped out of the side of the mountain, was lying on the ground. And so for whatever reason, it had been standing there for, I don't even know how long, 600 years, 800 years. But I just had the feeling that the tree had come down, and sure enough, it had. So all those parts are sort of connected and wrapped up into that story.
Wow.
And then the other part, with the ravenbeak that I always liked or connected to was the raven's one of the few birds that will build a tool. So the raven will, he'll build the stick to reach into the nest, and he is a bit of a tool maker as well. So yeah, I've always liked that connection to it. And we got a lot of ravens around here where we live, big, beautiful black ravens. And so they often, I'll be out, chasing yew wood or shooting bows, and I'll get that raven come and sit on the tree and say hi. So
that's such a cool story. Did you harvest any of the tree after it blew over?
Yeah, I took a couple little branches. It was not specifically great for bow making,
Yeah.
But yeah, I took some little pieces, sort of little carving wood, but nothing major out of it.
Yeah. Well,
it's almost like I almost felt like it had already given me the beak,
Yeah. Well, it's such a beautiful story. So yew has definitely been your main wood of choice, right?
Yeah. Right from the get-go, right from that first time we found the yew tree and started reading about sort of its traditional uses, the importance of it for the local First Nations all along the coast. To be honest, I have built very few bows out of anything but yew wood.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm not that interested in it.
Huh.
And even when I started building the bows, right from the time I found that yew tree, and then once you can identify the yew tree, you start to see them everywhere. You've been walking past these trees for your whole life, and now that you know what they look like, you say, "Oh, there's one, there's one."
Yeah.
So I started collecting wood. I was down in Victoria at the time, a lot around Mount Doug area, and there's a ton of wood in there. So I started collecting blowdowns and pieces, and started carving stuff out of their Pacific yew. So I've always been into like 3-dimensional carvings, like the spirals. I like making spirals. The 4 posts, the cage with the ball inside that can't come out. That stuff I've always found soothing to make.
So I can envision what you're talking about. Do you carve the ball inside it?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a cage. It's
Yeah.
got a top plate, bottom plate, 4 corner posts, and then the ball inside is big enough that it can't come out, but it is free to roll around.
That's cool.
I've liked 3-dimensional carvings.
Yeah.
I had a friend years ago, and her dad made a piece of chain link, all these chain links that were carved out of one piece. That I thought just blew me away. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah. It is.
So it wasn't until I found the right piece of wood that I even thought about making a bow. Like, I didn't say, "Oh, I want to make a bow. Let's go find wood." I was walking in the bush one day, and there was this big fir that had come down in the windstorm, and it destroyed this yew tree, and it took the top right off of it. But there was a perfectly straight 6-inch diameter stovepipe, 6 feet tall, that was just crying to be made into a bow. So then, yeah.
How did you even have the wherewithal to know that a bow could be made out of that? You must have had some knowledge of bow carving at that point.
I mean, at that point, I had done a bit of reading around, once we started identifying the yew, starting to read, what were the local uses of it. And I'd heard about yew bows before.
So when you found that first yew tree, that led you down a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Basically, the rabbit hole involved hunting. When Jenna and I first met, she was not eating sort of farmed meat. So chickens, pigs, cows were not on her plate. So I wanted to start hunting our local black-tailed deer. We got into crabbing, clamming, sort of more of the wild meats. I grew up with archery, though. My dad was an archer. My dad built a ton of arrows at our kitchen table all the time. He was more into the fiberglass bows, like the old Ben Pearsons and stuff. So I grew up shooting. I remember him, like, I still have a clear memory in my mind of watching my dad shoot the first arrow. And it involved us driving out to the farm and buying a straw bale and coming to the yard and setting up a target. And I still remember the arrow and just the speed of the arrow. Like, to me, it looked like a gunshot. It was just, he shot and then it was in the target, and there was nothing in between. And so then I started shooting. I shot a 60-pound glass bow, which was way too heavy for me at the time, but grew into it. And we would go shooting together out at our local fish and game club. Not really with a hunting focus at that point, but just sort of the archery focus. So archery had always been there for me, right from a young age. But the bow building sort of came when I found this tree and said, wow, what can I do with this beautiful piece of yew?
And what did you do with it?
Yeah, so I built... Yeah, well, I went where I was working at the time. There was a fellow there who was into archery as well. So I talked to him, and he told me about the book, the traditional Bowyer's Bible, Volume 1. So after work, I drove down to the bookstore, and they ordered it in for me, and I bought this book, and I just read it front to cover, and then I flipped it over and started again, and front to cover, and read it a few times. And to start with, I remember thinking, I'm just going to carve something that looks like a bow. Like, to me, that seemed doable. Like, as long as it looks like a bow, let's start there. So started carving, and I was trying to build a hunting bow. I was aiming for 50-pound, 28-inch draw, stiff handled, no recurves, flat limb, sort of pyramid shaped, 68 inches long. So that's where it started. Yeah.
How did it turn out?
Well, what I did was I built the first one sort of to those specs, but I built it to a point where it was starting to bend. And then I got intimidated and I was like, let's slow down a bit here. So that first tree, I split it with wedges. So I halved it and then I quartered it. And I remember I started with the nicest piece and I got it to sort of a floor tiller stage. And then I put it aside because I didn't want to screw it up. And then I took the worst piece out of the quarters and then I built it and started bending it. And so I built the tiller stick, just like in the book, with the post with the notches cut out where you pull the string down and lock it in. And it was a bit shorter because I think it had a big knot at one end. And it was short enough that I remember I named it walking stick because it sort of looked like a bow, but it sort of looked like a walking stick. And then I got it shooting. And I remember I was shooting it in a field one time and I had it back at full draw and the one tip just blew off and exploded. Oh. And then I was like, shit, you never name a bow walking stick. Because then it was a walking stick.
Oh man. Were you successful with the other 2 staves out of it?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I know I ended up with the light one that because I left it long and I was like, go light, like 35-40. And I built one that would shoot. And then I remember finishing up my 50 or 55 as sort of geared towards the hunting bow. And it did turn out. Yeah. And I shot that one for years. It wasn't the greatest tiller. In hindsight, I think the handle riser was too long and probably had a bit of a hinge in the upper limb and whatnot. But it turned out and I shot it. But for me, it was always, I'd build a bow, I'd shoot it a bit, but I'm definitely more of a Bowyer than I am an archer because I shoot it a few times and I'm already thinking about my next bow rather than shooting more. I'm thinking about the next tree or the next staves or.
Yeah. Have you had many teachers along the way? Or you've been self-taught with books?
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I definitely, could have benefited from more teachers. So no, I had very few. We're pretty isolated here. So we're up in Powell River. So we're landlocked where we are. I don't know really anyone locally who builds bows so much. I have people in town who I've, taught courses to and have built a bow. There was one friend I had in Victoria when I was working down there because I was doing airplane maintenance and building bows in my spare time. And I did meet one friend down there, a fellow named Jeff, who was building bows. He was into vine maple bows. But he was the first person who really, I geeked out on sort of in person. But no, most of my bow making was online, or most of my bow making sort of dialogue was online through that Primitive Archer website, the Bowyer's Bible books, and really trial and error. Like most of my experience has been trial and error. I did do one workshop. We'd already started our business and we're sort of building bows at that point. But I did do one workshop with John Strunk. He came up to the North American Longbow Safari in Comox one year, and I hopped on his bow making class. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
But it was good. But at that point, I was sort of already a little bit, set in my ways. Like I had my tools that I liked, and I had my tiller stick, and he had a great system that worked for him. But I had
John too. John was Whalen's first teacher.
Yeah. Oh no, he is an absolute wealth of information.
Yeah,
hands down. Yeah, I mean, as far as teachers go, he wrote the chapter "You Longbow" in the first Bowyer's Bible. So that is literally where I started. Yeah. So in a sense, he was my teacher there as well.
That's cool.
But there were some things, when he was tillering in the class, he would get everyone to just pull on their bow and he would look at it and sort of say, work the lower limb or work the upper tip. Whereas I was so set on having a tiller stick where I could stand back and see it personally.
Right.
Yeah. But no, he builds fantastic stuff.
Yeah. I lost the question I was going to just ask you. What was, oh yeah. So you started Ravenbeak in around 2011. How long had you been carving before you kind of had that full-time operation as a bowyer?
So I started, I remember we found our first yew tree in 2006, very early
Okay.
2006. And then shortly after that, I moved to Victoria. And that's when I really started getting into it. Started collecting wood. I found a couple big blowdowns. So big yew trees that had blown over windstorms that I had, cut up into 6-foot sections and split staves out. And I remember one tree, and I think I got like 23 staves out of it.
Wow.
Um, so all of a sudden, I went from having very little wood to like a lot of wood, um, and nicer wood too, which is helpful. So I started building, my own stuff, and I was, exploring. I want to say the intricacies of it, like shorter and wider, longer and skinnier, more rounded, more flat. Like I was really interested in, what sort of designs worked and didn't work. So I started building bows. And then I'd probably been building for maybe, must only been a year or two. And there was a primitive skills gathering on Vancouver Island that Jenna and I would go to, called Firemaker. So it was a week-long gathering, primitive skills. So people were teaching, wild edible plants, plant medicines, hide tanning, animal processing, flint knapping. And so I showed up the one year with a truckload of yew wood and said, we're teaching bow making. So didn't have much in the way of tools. We were using a lot of, probably in hindsight, not very sharp hatchets and pocket knives. I had my tools, I settled pretty quick on a hatchet, a rasp, and a scraper. I could build pretty much anything with those three tools. So showed up for the week, and people loved it. People were working their butts off, carving these staves out. In hindsight, I don't know if we actually finished a bow or not, to be honest. But just there's something about helping people find the bow, seeing people's connection to the piece of wood, that really, I don't know, filled me up on some level.
Yeah.
So through that, I remember asking for a tool donation. I said, hey, if people want to pitch in, I'll come back next year with more tools. So next year came back with sharp hatchets and rasps and scrapers. And so I taught there for a few years, just volunteering. And then did that for a couple years. And then there was a fellow named Grant, and he was running a little workshop on Salt Spring Island at the time, and he called the Woodland Workshop. He had a great little outdoor space under an old military parachute. And he came up to me after the Firemaker and he said, hey, Jamie, I run this workshop. If you ever want to come teach a bow class on Salt Spring, let me know. So we kept in touch and I said, hey, let's give it a shot. So he organized it and arranged, I think he had 5 people signed up for it. So he called me up and said, we're good to go. So I remember packing up my truck full of tools and wood, phoning in sick to work and saying I can't make it in this week, and driving down to Salt Spring. And that was my first sort of, I want to say, real bow class I taught. So we did that and it was great. Everyone built beautiful little bows and super happy. And I remember getting home and had a great time. And then a check showed up in the mail for $700. And I thought, damn, that's pretty cool. So that was the first time we, ran like an official workshop. And that was definitely a motivating force in, is it possible for us to, create this little bow business here tucked away on the West Coast?
Yeah. How did you get away with full time from the beginning?
We lucked out in certain ways. So I was working in Victoria at the time, and Jenna was working locally here. When my daughter was born, I'm trying to think of the exact sequence here. The work that I was doing in Victoria at the time, they had a plant in Calgary as well. And the Victoria group was ahead and Calgary was behind. So they offered us in Victoria a temporary layoff for a few months. So I took the temporary layoff, which gave me some spare time. Jenna, this would have all been right around the time my daughter was born and Feather was born, I don't remember the exact sequence, but we got Jenna got on the EI program, this sort of start your small business through the community futures. So you write up a business plan, submit it, you get approved, and they give you a bit of business coaching and funding for your first year. So we wrote up a little business on bow and arrows, selling bows, selling arrows, teaching classes. So we got that approved. So she got a bit of startup funding through that. We already had a sort of detached garage at our place here where we converted it into a little workshop. I had tools, so we didn't really need much money to get going. And then when my daughter was born, I got 9-month paternity leave through work, which was great because we were all at home, gave me some time. And then the work I was doing, we were a unionized shop. So I applied for a 6-month parental leave. And then I got another 6-month extended parental. So basically I had 21 months off of work, not all paid, but with job security. And that gave us a bit of time and space to get the business up and rolling. So the early days, I remember we applied and did the BC hunting and fishing show down in the Lower Mainland. So we did a trade show and sort of sold some workshop spots, made some connections for places to run, classes in Vancouver and Fraser Valley. So we got our courses up, started selling bows. And we did okay our first year. I don't remember our exact sort of income, but it was half decent. And then there was the big question at the end of all my leaves of, do I let go of my full-time job and are we giving this a legitimate go? Or do I go back to work for a bit, try and save up some cash? But we went all in and I called up work and said, I'm not coming back. And we had our business rolling at that point. And so we were teaching classes. I would often do a spring and a fall workshop tour. So I'd load up the truck and I was teaching a class in Courtenay, a class in Victoria, 1 or 2 classes in Vancouver. And doing that, teaching little 3-day bow making workshops, selling bows. And then did that for probably a couple years and things were sort of slowly picking up for us. And then there was a group in England called Archers Review at the time, and it was a website that would test archery equipment. So I forget how we found them, but Jenna wrote them an email, and the deal was you would send them a bow, they would test it out, and then they would write a review online for it, and then they got to keep the bow. So we sent him a real nice, I remember, named Brevy, this 65-29, real beautiful English longbow, 1 PCU, and the fellow wrote us just the most smashing review you could possibly hope for. Saying that, this quality of view is so hard to find and the craftsmanship is top notch, and basically saying every archer of moderate intelligence should go order one ASAP because Ravenbeak's going to get super busy and their prices are going to go up. So from that, we started getting, interest in bow orders from all over the world. I remember getting an order from like Kuwait and all sorts of places. And then through that, we got picked up by a shop in England called the Longbow Shop. A couple nice fellows over there, Graham and Jason, and they basically ordered some bows and offered to sell our stuff over there. So we started selling through them. They moved a lot of bows through that shop. And we were obviously selling to them at sort of wholesale pricing, but the advertising and marketing that we got through that and them, for us as a small business, was huge. So that grew. And then in 2015, crazy 10 years ago, there was the 600-year anniversary of the Battle of Agincourt that I really wanted to go to. So there was a big archery event in London at the time. So I reached out to the Longbow Shop and said, hey, maybe we should look at teaching a couple bow making workshops in England leading up to this event. So they thought that was a great idea. So they did all the registrations, and had a real nice workshop space for us there. So that was the first time I shipped all my wood and tools over to England, flew over and taught a couple classes in England, and then got to go to the events down in London, which was, pretty cool. Shooting with the old Fraternity of St. George, really old English longbow club over there, and shooting at very fancy historic sites. Like we were shooting at Windsor Castle. We shot on the Saturday, and then the Sunday we shot at the Artillery Company, which is right downtown London. So then that went well, and then we did, forget how many years, must be 5 years. I would go to England in October and teach some classes over there. And then we did that right up until COVID, and then that sort of settled out. And then I went back 1 year after COVID and did it again. But at that point, our bow sales at home were doing pretty good, and our workshops were pretty strong. Kids were getting older, and the traveling and setting up a temporary workshop just felt like a lot of work for the return. So focusing more on our stuff here, getting people to my shop. It's a different experience. I got all the tools, endless wood supply. So I think it's a better, more full experience when people come to my shop. So that's what we've been focusing on here lately.
What a great journey. So happy for you guys. And I don't remember how I came upon you, but I know that I had this calling to get into archery for my daily Qigong practice, and I knew I wanted something not modern. I didn't know what that was because I knew nothing about archery.
Yeah.
And I remember looking and having no idea what I was getting into, and thinking I would spend a few $100s on a bow, and that would be the beginning of my archery journey. And I don't remember how I came across you, you as in YOU, and then your U bows, and instantly fell in love with your products. So I remember I ordered Bailey's, my first one from you. And that was like, as soon as I got it, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. And it turned out you weren't that far away from me, just a little 2 or 3 hour drive up the island and then a ferry crossing. So I brought a few different men's retreats to carve bows with you. So it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you've shot a natural bow, like to me, there's a live a connection there. The bow's alive. It's different, and
I've never shot an unnatural one.
Yeah.
I've only ever shot primitive bows.
Yeah. No, when I shoot glass bows, it's just, there's no life to them the same way there, so it's hard to go back. I often think of archery as a spectrum. On the one end, you got the super simple stick and string. On the other end, you got the compound, composite, Kevlar. And people often find a spot on that archery spectrum wherever it seems comfortable. But then you start drifting, and you either start drifting more primitive or more techie. So I started pretty primitive to start, but I've definitely, that's my end of the spectrum. And that's been my game, is what is the sort of nicest, beautiful, best shooting bows you can make using as much natural material as possible.
Yeah.
So I've always drawn the line at fiberglass. That's been that line that I haven't crossed yet.
What was your first bow sale?
My first bow sale was just down the road from my shop. So on Lang Bay Road at the end of the street here, there's a little regional park, and every Labor Day weekend, there's a Sunshine Coast Music Fest. And we set up a booth there years ago, probably our first year, with just a couple bows I had kicking around. And a local fellow in town bought it was an all heartwood English longbow off of me. And that was lumpy. It had this one little, real nice lump right on the one limb. I don't remember what I charged, probably $150 at the time. But that was my first bow. We were really there mostly trying to sell workshop spots for our first bow making workshop, really. But he bought a bow off us.
I didn't know a longbow could be all heartwood from you.
Generally, it's not. Generally, like when we prefer longbow. So archery is funny because there's so many different namings and classifications. So when someone says a longbow, it doesn't actually tell you what they're talking about, because a longbow can either be a bow where just the string doesn't touch the recurve, will be called a longbow. Longbow can also refer to an English longbow, which is its own style, and a longbow, and then the American, sort of like a American longbow. So I would say it was built in a English longbow style, but had a tip overlay versus a horn cap. And yeah, so it's interesting because, in England, all of the longbows generally have a bit of sapwood on them. So the whole story, you'll hear it, sapwood is stronger in tension, heartwood stronger in compression. It's almost a natural laminate in a way. But all up and down the West Coast, if you check out the old bows in the museums, 99% of them are all heartwood. There's very, very little sapwood in any of the museum pieces I've visited. And I haven't been to a lot, but I've been to the Victoria Museum and Seattle at the Burt, and pretty much all heartwood bows. So I couldn't figure it out for years. I thought, why the heck are the First Nations on the West Coast building heartwood bows out of yew? And then in England, they swear by the importance of the sapwood. Mm-hmm. And then one day I was in Victoria teaching a workshop, and I had a fellow there, a real high-end native woodworker, carver. And really interesting to watch, because in my world, I'm working all rasps and scrapers and hatchets, and but in the native world, it's all the little hook knife, right? It's little hook knives, just chip, 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 chip. And he was telling me, he said, as a carver on the West Coast, the first thing you're taught, whatever project you're working on, is get rid of the sapwood. I said, okay, well, that's interesting. And he said, in a wet climate, the sapwood is going to rot quicker than the heartwood. So we got to get rid of it. So I thought, man, there you go. If you're living in a wet West Coast climate, decomposition is a major factor in your archery equipment. So if your bow is all heartwood and is going to last longer, there you go. So then I got interested in, the heartwood stuff. And sometimes in a tree, especially in the bigger trees, when you split them out, you'll get a weak year, whether it's, fire, whether it's drought, whether it's wind shake, but there'll be 1 year where there is no adhesion between the layers of heartwood. So I remember the tree because I split it out into these staves, but then the stave would separate. You get the belly split and the outer split. So I always called them piggyback staves. But you'd get a stave that had basically a perfect year of heartwood. So that's where that all heartwood longbow would have come from. Not traditionally accurate, but sort of a cross between taking pieces out of the English and taking pieces off the West Coast.
And you mentioned Victoria Museum. Do they have a nice archery collection?
Yeah. So the trick to the Victoria Museum is just send them an email ahead of time and arrange a tour into the archives. Because when you go into the standard museum, fantastic museum, all sorts of stuff, I think they had 2 bows on display. And you can't really get like they're behind glass. But when we arranged a tour ahead of time, 1, they gave us free tickets to the museum, and 2, they get you into the archives, and they probably had 50 bows in the cases back there. And they were pulling them out, letting you look at them. Everything in the museum is documented online, so you can look at the bows ahead of time, and they've got really good pictures of them. So they'll ask you, like, hey, are there specific ones you want to look at? And there are, because some of the First Nations bows are fascinating because, 1, they're super short and super wide, what we would call a paddle bow. Yeah. But some of the belly shape to them, a lot of them are not flat belly. Like you'll get into I call it like a scallop, like a concave curvature. But the one bow in particular has basically a triple concave running down the belly of it. So it's got 2 big concaves that go out to the edges, and then like a mini little concave running down the center. Like, fascinating to think people carving these with, I don't know, beaver teeth and mussel shells, or like phenomenal woodwork, considering that, realistically, these bows were likely produced without iron tools. And I know, like, even using, tempered steel rasps and hardened scrapers, like how dense dry wood can be. But to think of building these, pre-contact is absolutely phenomenal.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. I am going to look into that. Maybe my kids and I can go. We're only here for a few more weeks before we come to see you and kind of head back out again. But I would love to see that collection. I think.
Just tell them you're doing a research project, and
I'll just tell them Jamie MacDonald sent me.
There you
do
go.
The trick. I was with Pete Woodland yesterday, and I think he was talking to me about that particular bow style because he's making a lot of these concave belly ridge bows right now.
Yeah.
But he was talking to me about this First Nations bow that had like a channel carved through the belly ridge, which kind of sounds like what you were just describing.
Yeah. Well, there's one in the Bowyer's Bible. I think it's the first volume. There's a chapter, I don't know, I forget what it's called. But they have a bunch of pictures of yew bows, and the one is from Nootka Island, and it might be the bow that's in that book, because the book has a good picture of it, but then to see it in real life is a whole nother layer.
Wow. Yeah, very good advice. Thank you. I'll check it out. You've managed to build this bow building empire without any social media presence. Is that correct? Or at least you're not on Instagram. Or are you guys on any social media?
Knock on wood, we have been very fortunate. I actually joke. It's funny you said empire, because I actually joke and say we're building a lifestyle and not an empire. So it's funny to hear it referenced as an empire.
Sorry, just the first word that came to mind.
Totally. No.
It's to represent your success. You guys are doing well.
Yeah, we have been very fortunate. I remember years ago, there was a fellow not too far from us who had a website and was selling yew bows as well, and reached out to us, and we got in contact, and I quickly realized that we would make better, competition than colleagues. And from that date, I remember Jenna and I, our business meeting was simply, believe in what you do and do it the best you can, and don't worry what other people are doing. And that has been a bit of our motto. We take a lot of pride in what we do. We really do the best we can. We have been fortunate with sort of that Archer's Review, working with the longbow shop, which I think has helped raise a bit of our profile. But no, we have not done any marketing or advertising, really. Years ago, we ran a little classified ad in the back of Primitive Archer, just a little text ad, partly because we just wanted a link to their website for our SEO stuff.
Yeah.
And then really what we have sort of focused on was on our website, we, for years, and it was Jenna's idea, is we just want to collect email addresses. So people can sign up to be on our bow list. So when we build a new batch of bows, we'll finish them up, take pictures of them, and we will email the new bows out to our bow list. So those people on the list will get to see the new bows, say, a week before they go up on the website. So even if you're not interested in buying a bow and just want to see pictures of nice bows coming out, if you get on our list, you get to see the bows. So we do that. And a lot of our bows get sold, through that process before they ever make it onto the website. And then we do the same with our staves. We sell, over the years, I have been actively collecting wood ever since I started. And part of that is buying a lot of wood, but I also sell it quite a bit of wood. So I have a list of email people who are interested in wood and our workshops. So a lot of our outreach to customers is sort of direct through email. And it's all totally, I like it because it's very straight up and, very clearly, if you don't want to be on our list, just ask to be removed and we'll take you off our list. So I know that the people on the list want to be there and appreciate getting the updates. Instagram, haven't done. No. We sometimes do a little bit of Facebook. There's some of the bow building sites on there. Sometimes I think, man, should we be doing Instagram? But I often think our time is better spent in the shop doing what we do and sort of doing it well than, the outreach. But the world, it's changed a lot too, though. You know, when we started, there was hard to find a U-bow on the internet.
Yeah.
And so when we started, we sort of jumped into that niche and sort of filled it up. But we have definitely over the years seen businesses coming online who, I want to say, bear a striking resemblance to what we're doing.
Right. Well, whatever setup you have, it seems to be working. And social media can be a bit of an evil. So let's say if you're doing well without it, you're better off without it.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Well, I could talk to you all day, so I'm excited that I get to come and spend some more time with you in your workshop. I just have one more question I want to wrap up with. You talked about you're building a lot of war bows lately. How's the tillering process of those? Because I ask because I'm always like hearts up in my throat when I'm going through the first pulls on the tiller. Like when you're drawing back these 140-pound bows, like wow. Like
in a lot of ways, it is exactly the same. Everything is just scaled up. So, when I'm processing wood, I try and keep the wood as long as I can because I cut up a lot of wood, like quite a bit of wood, and I'm going through it and I'm just saying, first round is what's a possible war bow, and just trying to collect a collection of the longest, straightest, cleanest, nicest staves possible. Because you can't build war bows with, crummy wood. It's just not the ticket. So a lot of times the war bows will be sort of choice wood, hands down. And then as you sort your wood, your next is like, what's sort of full, like longbow, like 30-inch draw, I want 76. So then you go through and find that. And then what's your longbow wood? And then what's your flatbow wood? And then what's your billet wood? And then what's basically junk. So the war bows definitely start with the choicest wood, so that helps. Basically, I like to get everything on the tiller stick as early as possible. I watch some people build bows and, they'll get the bow strung and tillered and like basically almost finished before they put their horn caps on. I'm exactly the opposite. I put my horn caps on super early in the process because I want to get it on the tiller stick. My tiller stick, I have a pulley at the top, so I've got a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage. So if I'm building a 100-pound bow, I'm still only pulling 50 on the stick, or I'm on the rope, sorry. So, but the real trick I find with the war bows is get them on the stick early, and then you got to get them strung as early as possible, because by the time you can string the bow, you have very little room to tiller it to adjust the shape before you get out to full draw. So get them strung as early as possible. So for stringing early on, I often actually string them on the tiller stick. So I'll put the bow up on the tiller stick with the string and the stringer. I'll hook my my tillering rope up to the stringer so I can get 130, 140 pounds on the stringer to get it strung. Or I need a help in the shop. I need to deadlift the bow. I have to two feet on the string, 2 hands on the bow, and get someone else to put the string on.
Wow.
Because getting them strung early is utmost importance.
Yeah. Have you, doing that deadlift style, as you call it, have you had any explode on you?
I've built enough bows that I've seen a lot of things. So yeah, I've had bows. It just blow to splinters. Yeah. I had one last year. A friend of mine from England came over and he was building a real nice piece. And we knew there was something wrong. It had a little sort of that ring separation right out at the tip. And we shortened it down 2 inches. So we were building like 31-inch draw. And I thought we were good, but it must have just extended just past the horn cap because we had it on the tiller stick and we were stringing it. We probably had it pulled at 140. and that tip blew off on the stick and pieces everywhere. And it happens, right?
Yikes. Yep.
Yep. And I always say, better now than later, because the last thing I want is that to happen out in the world at some archery event. If it blows up in my shop on the tiller stick, which is, tiller stick's 6 or 8 feet away from me, that's the best place it could possibly happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, which you haven't asked, is that for early in our business, we were building bows and arrows. And then as the bows got really busy, I outsourced the arrows to a buddy of mine who built arrows for us for a few years. Built a ton of arrows, beautiful stuff. He then moved away up to Haida Gwaii. So then for years, we were not building arrows, but were sending our customers up to him.
Is that Blaine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Blaine has built
Stump
many.
Stalker?
Yeah. My understanding is Blaine is not building arrows at the moment.
Okay.
So then for a few years there, weren't doing any arrows, and we're sending customers to various places. And then in the last year or so, I have been training my children on building arrows.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we have now started up our arrow side of our business again. And my kids are building real nice self-knocked bamboo arrows. With my help, but they're doing great and learning fast. So at this moment, the kids are building our arrows for us.
Oh, that is beautiful, dude. Yeah. I'm glad you shared that. I didn't circle back around to them. I did want to ask if they're making bows with you at all, but it sounds like they're doing some arrows. Are they carving bows as well?
Not really. No, I've built bows with their homeschool groups.
Yeah.
So they have bows and they both shoot a bit. But no, at this point, they are not really building so much bows. They help around the shop. They help me package staves. They help move wood around. They help with a lot of that stuff. But
and are you guys selling those arrows?
Yep. At this point, we are now. They built a bunch. Sort of, I would always QC check them and give them tips and advice. But at this point, they are building our arrow orders. Yeah.
And that's on your website as well?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Can you give the audience that domain?
Our website is www.ravenbeak.com, and it's all on there. Our bows, our arrows, our staves, our workshops. And then our other side businesses we've started doing with the kids. Some of that has funded our traveling. We're building U-wood dice out of some of our offcuts.
Oh, fun.
Real nice little wooden dice that are all drilled. So the holes are drilled out, oiled up. Doing that. And buttons, U-wood buttons out of branches. So
for like clothing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. So those are on the website too.
Yeah. Nice. I love to hear about these family operations. You guys are all in on the family. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, this is all they know, right? They grew up in the archery shop. They were crawling around here on the floor as babies. And we have been doing this for both of them their whole life.
Yeah. Wow. So good. Oh man, I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. Your bows they changed my life. So thank you so much for introducing me to the world of primitive bows and your beautiful longbows. Really excited to be coming back to build another one with you in a few weeks and get to see your property again and hang out with you and Jenna and the kids.
Yeah. We're super excited to have you up here. Your project you're working on sounds really cool. Excited to get to work with you in the shop, and then, excited to see and hear sort of insights into other bow makers' shops and spaces as well.
Yeah. I'm happy to share everything with you. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks for listening to Project Quiver on Salish Wolf. Follow our journey on Instagram at Project Quiver as we seek out the world's most extraordinary traditional bowyers, and join our newsletter at projectquiver.com. Our coffee table book, Quiver, The Art of Life Through Bowcraft, arrives in 2026. We are honored to share with you the beauty, history, and magic of traditional archery.